Come 1951, the US military was now very definitely mucking around with tanks in the 60-ton range. And the M4A3 based M74 medium tank recovery vehicle, which was just entering service, was designed to deal with M26 and M46 range tanks. Not monsters like the T-43, the prototype of which has just shown up in June of 1951. A project was thus started for a heavy armoured recovery vehicle, T-51. Chrysler were given the contract, and to keep things simple, they decided to use some of the components from the M103 tank that they were also building, albeit at a different facility. Come February 1953, the prototype M51 shows up. It is approved for service September 1953, but before creation of all of them was complete, they realized that they needed to make 52 modifications to make them acceptable for service. So the modifications were either retroactively fitted or done on the production line to anything not yet built. But these were just enhancements, not a variation, so it was never an M51A1. All US Army and US Marine Corps M51s built were just M51. I'm at the US Army's Armor and Cavalry Collection. It is a training facility in Fort Benning, Georgia, and they have been nice enough to allow me to wander around their collection and do some videos on vehicles, and I've decided that I haven't done a recovery vehicle yet. They are kind of important to the running of tanks, and the M51 is impressive. So let's take the tour. The first thing to note about M51 is this is a purpose-built vehicle. Now, most armored recovery vehicles, you start with a tank hull, and instead of a turret, you put a superstructure with all the recovery stuff added onto it. Not so with the M51. If you look at the hull shape and compare that with an M103, you'll see that it has absolutely nothing in common above the axles. So that's your first important point. Now, the business end, of course, is the very large spade. You could, I guess, use it for earth moving, but really what its purpose is traction. Lower the spade, it digs into the ground as you are winching from the front. The main winch is behind this cover here. We'll have a look at it inside. So in addition to the 60 tons of weight coming down on the tracks holding it in place, you've also got a 7-foot blade. So yeah, quite a bit of pull coming off of that winch. To the left of the cover for the main winch, you got your towing pintle, your tow hook mounts, and up top, the big bolted panel. That is your access port for the main winch, which would lift up and out if you needed to replace it. The door on the right hand side, that is for the auxiliary winch, and you'll see also a roller up at the top, so you can either winch forwards or you can winch up as needed. Coming around to the side, you're going to see stowage for tools will be on the left, headlights, low vis light, and then you go around to the side. Now the armor at the front, 3/4 of an inch at 36 degrees or 1.5 inches thick vertical below the corner. So that you see as you come around the side are retaining pins for the blade and a chain as well. Also on the blade you're going to see stowage points for shackles, which of course you would remove before you start doing any winching operations. There's a heavy shackle and 2 light shackles. Coming around the side then, the running gear. So you got the compensating idler wheel, 7 pairs of road wheels per side on torsion bars, the 5 return rollers per side, the tracks, friction snubbers, they're all off of the M103. The tracks are 28 inches wide, they have a pitch of 7.09 inches, 81 links per side. System will span a 9.1 foot trench and a 36-inch wall. I bet you're impressed I know all this. The fording depth is 5 feet, which is actually pretty reasonable by their standards. Again, you can see on the whole side, it comes straight down and then angles. It's not a boat shape like on the M103. The friction snubbers are on the first, second, and last 2 stations. And there is a double bump stop at the front and then singles the rest of the way back. Alright, so coming around the bulky side, past the guards here for the headlight and the latch for the driver's door, which swings open, latches in place, 2-shot fire extinguisher. Come back, you got 2 jerry cans, will be stowed here. This door, it's one of the luxuries of having an armored recovery vehicle. Space is at less of a premium than it is on a tank combat vehicle, so you can have a couple of quality of life enhancements. In this case, having big doors for the air cleaners. There's one on the far side as well. Actually, I'm fairly sure that my 88 crew in Iraq had set up a bowling alley inside their 88, but I was never able to confirm that. As you come further back, you're going to see mounting points for an acetylene bottle, oxygen bottles, big tow bar, there's one on the far side as well. There's a stowage bin, and then you finally get to the back. Come around to the back, I'm not going to spend too long. I will note that the fender is held in place by this support arm, which has a quick release pin. Of course, it's ridiculously overpainted and I can't quick release it, but you will see that the fender is on hinges. As you come further back, well, you got a lifting eye behind the rear blade for obviously rear operations. On the inside, you're going to see the mounts for the tow hooks, then a port for your electrics for your trailer, the pintle. Chain comes down under the hook. The tow cable is stowed on the side of the arm, which seems a little bit inconvenient, but okay. As I recall, that device there was known in the manual as a shear swivel. If I'm wrong, I'm going to put it up on the text overlay underneath. I haven't quite figured out what it's for. The arcane arts of recovery, which are known only in secret rituals to senior warrant officers. So right hand side, you're going to see the retaining pins for the rear blade, chain. That is the rear roller for the auxiliary winch. There is an intermediate roller at the back of the cab roof, and of course you had that one at the front. So it goes up, over, comes over the top of this one, comes down probably under the bottom of this one, depending on how far away whatever it is that you're winching is. Another tow bar is mentioned. Under here is the exhaust for the auxiliary motor, so you don't have to run the main motor when you're running your hydraulics. So remember when I said the space was not so much of a premium in an ARV? Well, that applies to the engine compartment as well. The M103, big guy remember, has an 800 horsepower engine. Not so the M51. The M51 has the AVSI 1790-6. This is a supercharged, fuel-injected V12 1791 cubic inches, puts out 980 gross horsepower, torque gross of 1870 foot-pounds. That means that this vehicle has a tractive effort of 179,500 pounds. In order to handle all that, they had to make a special transmission, the XT 1400-2. Something else they have, I'll open it up in a second, is stowage above the transmission, because you have that much space. So as I open this up here, you can certainly see a couple of extra stowage bins. The arm itself is hollow, and if you look in the port here, you're going to see the cables that are used. There's no hydraulic pistons in here, it's all winches and cables. The hydraulics are used for the winches, and also there's a hydraulic ram which conducts the traverse of the crane. It's about 30 degrees in each direction. Coming further back, there is another air cleaner in here, but it's easily accessed from inside. That visor, by the way, is for the crane operator, so he can operate head down if he needs to. Crane operator's door, so there's a crew of 4, driver's door and the crane operator's door, although this backrest here is actually for the rigger. To get in and out, they have conveniently created a detachable ladder, which comes in here. If I can figure out how to do this. So it goes that way. There we go. And you climb in. Oh, note also it says rocket ammo. It carries 6 rounds for a 3.5-inch bazooka. Right, once you're in, the crane operator's position is to your left, or the right rear corner of the crew compartment. And he sits sort of at a 45-degree angle facing the left rear fender. He has 3 controls to his front. They're conveniently labeled: boom traverse, left, neutral, or right. They're simple. All three of them are forward back levers. Boom, lower, neutral, and raise. And hook, lower, neutral, and raise. Although I don't see one that says extend. So I'm wondering if boom, lower, and raise is also extend and retract, simply because of the angle that the arm is at. There is a foot pedal, says speed control, crane speed control. Make it that what you will. And there is a lever here, of it, which purpose I have absolutely no clue. Hand grenade box to his front. Looks like an dome light just above him. He has the visor, as I mentioned, to the direct rear, so he can see what he's craning without exposing himself. But he has the hatch up top, and I'm sure there is a raise option on this chair. Here it is. Yeah, you can see the raising arm here, that the seat will raise and lower. Let's see if it'll actually function. Yeah, it does. Amazing. There's a bunch of sand in here. This vehicle was actually sandblasted at some point, and they haven't gotten the sand out. I'm sure they'll get around to it. Again, like most of the other vehicles here, they have finally had the resources to start preserving these vehicles instead of just having them sit outside. And so first thing they're doing is they're getting them all into shelter where they can be protected, and then they're going to set about actually trying to make them a little bit more presentable. But it's actually not in the worst possible condition. It looks a lot worse than it really is, just because it's ratty and the paint's falling off. But supposedly this vehicle is actually a runner, so you never know. You might see it running around one day. The seat to the right, and he literally sits on a pad on top of a stowage bin, and right in front of the door. It's almost like the footstep once you walk in. That is the rigger's seat. So those are two of the four crew. There's stowage to the right. And then we move forward and a little bit left now into the main part of the crew cabin. So my wife has this thing called the junk drawer. And apparently it is a thing. And it is where you store your odds and ends, things that don't have a specific place. Well, the Army has a term for it. The oddments compartment. So I'm here in the commander's position, more or less. I'm not going to actually sit on the seat because it looks like it's not going to hold my weight. It's been bent out of shape or whatever. But he is basically right smack dab in the middle of the crew compartment. Above him, he has a cupola, rotates, has up top an externally fired caliber 50. 1,500 rounds of caliber 50 ammunition are carried, which initially struck me as being a little bit excessive for a recovery vehicle. I mean, even my tank only had, what, 900? Not even. And then I made mention of this to the curator here, Rob Cogan, who pointed out to me the story of Harold Risha, who earned himself a Navy Cross, basically Audie Murphying an M51 in Vietnam. So, okay, there you go. I guess you can, having that much ammunition is not a waste of space that could perhaps be used for other things. Kind of like you can never have too much ammunition unless you're on fire, sort of thing. Directly behind him is the radio mount, and I do note that the radio is actually in very good condition, all things considering what the rest of this vehicle has gone through. So I'm sure Signal Corps would love to get their hands on this one. To his front, he has a footrest. Then there is the main winch. The main winch has a 45-ton capacity. The auxiliary winch on the right is all of a 5-ton capacity. I make mention of these angular bars here. There's one on the right as well. If you look on the outside where the boom arm is, you'll see two long support rods that anchor to the roof. These rods extend up into the anchor, and they brace against the lower front corner of the hull. So that's just sheer rigidity in place here through these bars. Right, driver. Right, driver's seat. He has, of course, these multiple positions: head up through the hatch or head down by use of the periscopes mounted around him. The T-bar, remember the M103 has an actual steering wheel, but this is a T-bar or tiller. This has two positions. This is the up position, and if it wasn't frozen, you could flip up this latch. It would rotate down to a lower position, which I presume will be the head down position. The accelerator pedal and brake pedal are the same. There's no second pedal for up or down, so you're kind of feet up when you're in down position like this. To the right, he's got his controls for the winches. So he has the main winch brake and shift levers, and he also has the auxiliary winch brake lever, is the one on the far left. Gear shift is to his right, neutral is up front, third range, second and first. So first is your lowest gear only, and there is reverse all the way to the back. To his left, main and auxiliary winch controls are found here. Overhaul date, let's see, 5/72 this was last overhauled in TEAD, wherever TEAD is, something Army Depot, TE Army Depot. I have to look that one up. And there is a builder's plate here, so it says Ordnance Corps, U.S. Army. That implies to me that this is one of the Army M51s. Not many were made, not many were used. The Marines, of course, being the major users of the M103s, they had most of the M51s. Instrument panel on the left. Let's see, we got fuel tanks. Let's see, I don't know why they have a selector for front and rear unless it's for the feed. Well, normally when you see a fuel tank selector, that's the reader as to which tank you're reading, but since they have indicators for front and rear, I'm going to presume it's the feed. Master switch, it seems to be a big red lever around the corner to the front here. We have bilge pump, air heater, no, breather? Heater, yes, preheater, auxiliary preheater. Yeah, I'll get there. Infrared lights, flashers, ventilator blower, personnel heater. This is the off auxiliary or start for the auxiliary generator. The main engine are down here, so I see a switch here for the magnetos. And the traditional headlights are located here on the left, from the old panel switch, which we've seen many times before. Door is back to his left with another 3 rounds of 3.5-inch bazooka available to whoever decides they want to use it. The ladder, I suspect, is not the authorized stowage position, but it's here now anyway. And there is a heck of a lot of hydraulics behind me. Don't ask me what they do. I haven't found it in the manual or any of the books. The crane, by the way, has a 30-ton capacity, or if it's fully extended, it goes down to 15. That about covers the M51. 187 of these vehicles were built between 1954 and 1955. The vast majority went to the Marine Corps because the Army didn't use the M103 for very long, and they had M74s and then M88s to deal with all the other tanks, M46 through M60. Although it does beg the question why this has a rebuilding plate of 1972 Army Ordnance Corps. We think the Army Ordnance Corps was doing the refurbs for the Marines. The Marines, being heavy users of the M103, retired their M51s in 1979. They actually outlasted the M103 by 7 years, because this was the only armored recovery vehicle of any capacity that the Marines had. They hung around until the M88 started showing up. Right, that's it. Again, thanks to the US Army's Armor and Cavalry collection for allowing me to clamber over their vehicle. Check out their Facebook page. And thanks also to the Patreons who have funded this trip. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Now it's time for the bloopers. And to get in, they have, conveniently, a ladder, which can be easily mounted and demounted. On the side here. I know it can be easily done because I've done it. It's just that a little bit wide for some reason. Oh, for fuck's sake. And the boom itself, or arm in the parlance of the manual, third point of contact. To keep things simple, they decided to use a lot of the components from the M103 tank that they were also producing, albeit at a different facility. And then something happened.